Welcome to another episode of Shots from the Winchester podcast, where we explore leadership topics from a variety of perspectives. This podcast is brought to you by Greencastle Consulting, your nation's premier strategy execution firm. Joe Crandall, CEO, visionary of Greencastle Consulting.
Yep.
Yeah. 500% since you came on board.
Is that what that number is?
I think so. That's pretty effective. Impressive. Yeah. Impressive. The quality of the company has grown since 2019 when you've taken over.
Yeah. It's always a good company, but yeah, we've made some tweaks to sharpen things up a little bit.
Yeah. Jumping into that real quick, what was the vision when you bought the company? Like, was this the idea?
Not to lose my house. Yeah. No, the vision was always to create an environment where veterans could be successful and have a career. And so I really liked the Greencastle model, the things that Selwyn and the other founders built. And so it offered us an opportunity to build on a very solid foundation, and with a few tweaks, and even to the point of today's topic of delegation.
Yeah,
it allowed us to flourish for the last 5 years.
Nice. Now, you just mentioned the topic we're getting into today is delegation, and one of the subject matters is that I've taken away. And the reason why I wanted to talk to you is like you like to say, put the right people in the right seats,
right?
And get those right people in the right seats. How important is that to delegation?
Oh, it's extremely important.
Right.
So, in my opinion, leadership is the foundation of that is delegation. If you can't delegate, who are you leading, right? And so we talk about putting the right people in the right seats. We get that from the Traction methodology and a few other books, but the idea is that if you put the right person in the right seat and they have the ability to do it, they have the capacity to do it, and they also have the skill set, then the only thing that they need to know is what the goal is and their left and right limits. And if you back to our core value of hiring adults, if you do those things and you just let people go, over and over in my career, I've been surprised by the results. And so it's something that I learned very early in the Navy. Is you have to delegate. You have to give people stretch opportunities, and if you don't, you're essentially robbing them of their ability to grow and to become leaders themselves. And so, throughout my career, I had a ton of opportunities where leaders gave me something to do. It was a stretch. They gave me the goals, the left and right limits. And they could have easily done it themselves, but they let me do it, and I screwed up, or I was successful. And it gave me a whole bunch of experience, and I wouldn't be where I am today without that opportunity. So it's the same sort of thing is everybody that we're trying to grow into leaders, you have to give them the opportunity to go out there and represent the company, be successful, and sometimes make mistakes, but learn from them.
Right. That's one thing we do talk about here, especially learning from your mistakes, growing from your mistakes. And I think mistakes actually define, if not build, character.
Well, I think also you learn more from the mistakes. When when everything goes to shit, you sit there and go, okay, what happened? What went wrong?
Right.
When everything goes perfect, everybody just looks at each other and goes, good job, and then moves on to the next. And so, not that you shouldn't be happy with the successes and when things do go well, because maybe that is built upon many, many, many years of failures.
Right.
But it's when things go bad, and you have an open and honest conversation with yourself and the people involved, you can learn a lot.
Yeah.
I was in one job. I was in sales, and we lost a huge deal. Company was booking it for the year. It was going to make our year, and we lost it. And being a SEAL and doing after action reports after every op and kind of doing lessons learned and that kind of stuff. I was like, when are we going to talk about this? And they're like, no, we're not.
Never talk about it.
And so I wrote an email of kind of like what I learned and what I'm going to do different. And I got yelled at. And,
really?
Yeah. And, very small people were in charge. Unfortunately, that was kind of like another check mark to be like, okay, maybe I should go somewhere else. But and learning is a huge part of delegation. If you sit there and you give somebody a task and you're not there as a resource or to the ability to kind of guide them or to answer questions, and you just kind of let them go out and fail on their own. That's not delegation. That's not leadership. That's being a jerk. Yeah. So you got to do all of it in order for delegation to be successable.
Yeah.
And, Greencastle wouldn't be where we are today if, or even Stronghold Leadership and some of these other companies that I'm involved in.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be where they are today if I didn't delegate.
Right.
I'd still be doing the podcast.
Yeah. Now you brought up tasks. One of the things that I think is important to understand is when you're deciding to give someone a task.
Yeah.
How do you? And the subject matter behind this is also the art of letting go. So kind of the title of this. To let go of those responsibilities, because sometimes, especially when you're a small business, you're working extraordinarily hard, and a lot of it is like you feel lonely, you're just doing it, and then when you start adding people on, you start having a hard time letting go of those responsibilities because you feel the confidence, like I know what I'm doing, but you don't trust the people.
Right.
Like how do you determine what to delegate versus what you want to keep on your own plate?
Yeah. So fundamentally, and I think you've heard me talk about this, and it's the graphic that I have of above the waterline and below the waterline decisions, right?
Yeah.
So for a small business like Greencastle, anything that's below the waterline, essentially of a ship that could sink us, is only a decision Eric and I can make.
Right.
Just because that has such company-ending possibilities.
Right.
Beyond that, the way I look at it is everything else should be delegated. And the two things that are important about delegation is the fact that one, you got to be comfortable with whatever you would have done, but at 80%. Because if whoever you're delegating that task to can do exactly the same thing up to an 80% point, they're always going to add their own flavor. And you want that. That's the diversity of thought. That's the, hey, I never thought of that kind of conversation. And so you have to be comfortable with them not doing it exactly the way you do it. And then the other side is when you're having conversations about the results or their approach and that kind of stuff, I always refrain from making comments or criticism of things that were done right, but just not the way I would have done them.
Right.
I'll provide feedback and say, that was not what I was expecting. You didn't hit the mark, or, you knocked it out of the park. Those are the kind of criticisms or guidance I think that is valuable for somebody versus I would have chosen a different color or a different font.
Right.
They accomplish the same thing, but just, again, with their flair. And so as a leader, if you're not comfortable with somebody taking it on and owning it, then you're looking for a drone. You're not looking for a worker.
Right. So giving that positive feedback, but not just being vague and like, hey.
And nitpicky, right? And so it's like, think of if I said, hey, Al, I want you to create a snippet for Facebook. And I wanted to cover these 4 tenets, and I want and I tell you all the things around it. And you come back and you do it, and it's maybe a new color or a new something or another, but it's all there. I have to sit there and go, he accomplished what I wanted him to. Now, is what he changed or what you did differently wrong in the absolute sense?
Right.
If it's just hey, I like red over, dark purple or whatever, then it's like, okay, doesn't work. But if you come back and the video doesn't cover the things that I wanted you to do and that kind of stuff, then that's when it's like, hey, listen, you didn't hit the mark.
Right.
But that's the cool thing. I mean, it's one of the cool stories I have about delegation is when I was a junior officer in the SEAL teams, and we were getting ready for deployment. So a 6-month deployment. We're pulling all this other stuff together on the not the tarmac, but on the grinder. And I'm I think a second lieutenant, so an O2, or not a second lieutenant, a lieutenant junior grade.
Yeah,
been working with Army people too long. And so I'm an O2, and I'm kind of helping direct stuff. They're helping me feel important.
Yeah,
and the enlisted guys are looking at me like, yeah, get this guy out of here. But there was one thing we had to get done, and I turned to one of my more senior NCOs and I said, hey, we need to get this done. And he goes, okay, do you want to know how we do it, or do you just want the results? And I go, I just want the results. And so he goes off, and it was pretty tough. I wasn't sure if he was going to be successful or not.
Yeah.
He gets it done and he comes back and I say, hey, how'd you get that done? He goes, sir, you don't want to know. and so you have to also, when you delegate, be willing for them to, everybody to be inventive with their solutions. Because I mean, they might come up with something. You're like, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Or should I get a lawyer?
And that goes into like, if you have a person you're building trust, you're building a good line of communication with those people as well, so that they understand clearly what your intentions are and what the expectations are. And through delegation, making sure that you have that right person doing that job was also important. How do you manage to get people to not wear too many hats,
Well, that's a tough thing because I mean, in a growing company, you have all these roles, and a perfect example is we had a senior leader a few years ago that they were the only ones that could do a certain task. That I'm the only one, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you're not.
Right.
And that kind of mentality is not very conducive to a growing company and trusting and that kind of stuff. And so there's not a single task in this company that can't be done by somebody else. And like if I walked out the door today and Eric always likes to say win the lottery, but if I got hit by a bus, could Eric step into my shoes? Could Adam and Jeremy and everybody else step up? Yeah. And there's probably even a couple phantom leaders out there that could step up and take the roles. And it's like, you gotta be comfortable with that. And also you have to, you always have to be preparing people for their next role.
Yeah.
If they want to. There's some people that just want to coast, and that's awesome. Right. They just might want a JOB, and I just want to do management consulting for the next 5 years, and then I'll decide. Yeah. Then you get guys that want to, and gals that want to have a little bit of a more of a hockey-shaped kind of career, and it's you gotta give them those opportunities. I've passed on, like, for example, with Eric, when I first bought the company, everything went through me, everything. Yeah. And he was the CFO, and he wanted the ability to write checks. And because my house was on the line, my kids' 529 plans, my 401k, everything was online. I just didn't feel comfortable with Eric signing checks. Right. And it wasn't because I didn't trust Eric. It was just because I hadn't gotten to that point yet. But if I today, now 3-4 years later, if I still continue to write the checks, the company wouldn't be where we are today. So I had to get comfortable with it. Him and I had to get trusted advisor status on that particular scenario. Right. And now I let Jeff do it. I let send the money out. I let Eric do it. And I got to trust him. So
effective delegating actually helps you scale up.
Oh, totally.
Your business, right? So, like, as a small business, like I started out as a video company, video photography company. Then I moved into doing websites and website design because I brought somebody on that knew what they were doing. Yeah. And to scale out, you have to be able to delegate those responsibilities out to people because I don't know how to build websites. Right. I can do graphics, but websites itself and code and all that stuff, that's not my wheelhouse. Yeah. But like you say, putting the right people in the right positions gets you those results, and you can get that exponential growth from there.
Well, you have to delegate out to grow. Yeah. It is a key tenet to just making sure that the right people are doing the right jobs. And again, when I first started in this role, I was doing everything. And then the first non-consultant we hired was Alicia, and I was like, good, you're doing all the HR stuff. Yeah. I could still do it, but I would be, if you had a scale of 1 to 100 and 100 being perfect, I was probably doing it at a 25. And Alicia can take it to a 75 or above, right? Yeah. And so that's the kind of the mental gymnastics I would go through when I was ready to step out of a task and say, all right, we're going to hire now somebody in talent management, or we're going to hire a recruiter. They're going to do it ideally at least 3x better than I could ever do. Right. Yeah. But I had to get it off the ground, and I had to know kind of the basics of what was going on. So when they turn around and say, I need a left-handed smoke shifter to make this work, I can be like, no, you don't. Yeah. You're good.
Yeah, that's a good look. For the leaders out there who are brand new to the business, building their business for the first time, or maybe stepping into a business similar to how you did it, maybe they have a small crew, maybe they have a small amount of people that they're starting to build into. A lot of times, especially like what we do here at Greencastle with the change management, coming into a business where the employees are used to a certain type of demeanor, and here you come with a different kind of energy.
Yeah.
How do you manage to get those people on your side through trust, confidence building? How would you think?
That's a good question from the standpoint of anytime somebody jumps into a role, a new role, whether they get promoted into it or they start a new job or something like that. There's a period of time that they should just listen and sit and watch and observe before they start making changes.
Right.
Now, that period of time might be very short. For example, when I bought Greencastle, that time was Selwyn, who was the previous owner, had given me the advice of not to change anything for a year.
Yeah.
And I started, I took his advice and I processed it, and I knew there was things I wanted to do that if I waited a year, it would no longer be the right time. So I moved fast and quickly and made a lot of changes up front. But the reason why I think they were all really successful is because everybody on board was asking for the change. They wanted the change. And so when I made the change, it was like, oh, thank goodness, right?
Yeah.
And however, change has to come at the appropriate time. When we switched over to the MD model, we couldn't have done that 3 years ago because it just wasn't time.
That's management director for that, guys. Yeah.
And so we just couldn't do that at the time because we hadn't matured enough as a company in other areas. And so, you always see that one picture I bring up on GAC Day of the ships, right?
Yeah.
And so as much as I would have loved to just jump to the end and been like, all right, let's go, that would have been chaos. And I would imagine even for some of the folks that aren't involved with how we make the sausage probably thinks it is chaos, but it's not. We have an operating system that I would suggest anybody starting out in business should look at adopting some sort of way they run their business universally. Yeah. And we use EOS, right? So Entrepreneurial Operating System. And other people will use Balanced Scorecard or OKRs or whatever, the 12-week life, whatever it might be. But the thing that I like about EOS is that it's a comprehensive picture of how to run a business versus just set goals and go. And so it's about meeting cadence. It's about a big part of it is about what they call letting go of the vine, which is delegation. Yeah. And I wouldn't be in my role as a visionary if I didn't delegate essentially the day-to-day tasks to Eric. And Eric couldn't be the integrator if he didn't delegate talent management to Adam and let him go run with it, right? With the knowing of what the goals are and how to accomplish. And Adam knows very clearly what we're trying to accomplish. He knows his left and right limits, and he knows the goal. So you just, all right, go. Yeah,
that's great. It's especially when you have solid people doing the job.
That's the key. Yeah. The people is like, and that is usually the hardest aspect of any business. And for us, working with our clients, it's the people in the process, usually two of the most neglected pieces of any sort of project. But definitely when you're trying to grow a company, I would suggest that if you're beginning to think about buying a company or going into business with somebody, that's probably a more important decision than who you're going to marry. Just because you're going to spend I spend more time with Eric than I do with my wife. And it's a good thing I like him. I hope he likes me. But and I'm glad my wife likes his wife. But it's like you're going to spend a lot of time. And when money of the business becomes involved, people get weird. I never got that weirdness from Eric, which was awesome. And so we were 95% aligned on everything. And so when he is let's just say running some aspects of the company, and I sit there and I give him the side eye of like, what's going on there? I'm usually like, okay, because he knows, again, the goals, he knows the strategy, he knows what we're trying to accomplish. And is he doing it differently than I would do it? Is it wrong? No, it's just different. Just like if I would ask anybody in this company to do a task, 120 different answers. They would all kind of be close, but you would get 120 different answers.
There's value in that.
Total. Diversity
absolutely.
of thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you can't expect that you know everything.
Right.
And that's part of like the art of letting go. Understanding that you don't know everything.
Oh, yeah.
And that you can put that task out and probably get, like you say, get 120 different answers, which, that's a lot of room to say, hey, that's a good idea. That's not such a good idea.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But you also have to be careful that sometimes certain decisions in business or in a project or whatever sometimes have to be made by one person.
Yeah.
And so if you have 120 ideas, you potentially have 119 people that are going to get pissed off by the direction that it's going.
Yeah.
So that's where change management comes in. That's where leadership comes in. But and that's also, as a leader, you have to decide, is this something that I can delegate, again, above the waterline and below the waterline decisions?
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, that waterline for me has changed over the years.
Okay.
When I first bought the company, 90% of the ship was underwater because I didn't feel comfortable with anybody making any decisions. And then as I got to know people and saw their skill sets and just going through that whole trusted advisor status with each individual person, that waterline keeps coming down.
Yeah.
And it'll continue to come down. I mean, there will probably be a day where you guys don't see me for 6 months because I trust it's the watch concept that I talk about.
Right.
Everybody's doing their jobs and everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing. And you treat them like adults, and that's it.
I think the comfort zone is when you can sit back on a beach somewhere, having an umbrella drink with the wife and kids, and you can just relax and know that their business is running without anybody. Nobody's calling you, nobody's bothering you while you're on PTO. Yeah. That's the goal.
I would think so.
In a lot of ways. Yeah.
Well, because your time is I've learned this as I've gotten older. That your time is really the only thing that you can't get back.
Yeah.
You can always get more money. You can always get more things and toys and that kind of stuff. But I'll never get back the times when my kids were playing soccer, or my daughter was on the basketball court, and that kind of stuff.
Right. We talk about that on the podcast a lot. How time is the most valuable asset.
It is.
And people's time is very valuable. So I'm thankful for you to have the time today to have our conversation about this, because I feel like the people out there who, especially if you're a leader, you're a manager or anything like that, and you've got a team and you're learning how to delegate, or if you're trying to just kind of update your own skill set. This is a great conversation to have right here with Joe. Thank you so much for your time today, especially. This is great. Do you have any shout outs? Or actually, you mentioned a book earlier. Could you mention to the audience which books maybe would be good to look at? Yeah,
I'd say first and foremost, if you're running a business, it should be run on an operating system. I like EOS just because it makes sense and it's simple. And there's a whole arc of books from Gino Wickman on that whole topic. I'm reading his last book, Shine. And then we have a whole reading list that we have people that we suggest our employees read. But the other important book, I think, is Radical Candor. Just because there's a quadrant in the book that talks about the different quadrants of conversations with people. And when you have radical candor that's based upon love and wanting to really help somebody to improve and those kind of things, you can help their career. Yeah. And where we sometimes have fallen short, especially here at Greencastle and some other places, is with the ruinous empathy, where you're not doing a great job. I don't have enough strength to tell you you're not doing a good job. Yeah. Evaluations come up. I say, hey, you're doing all right. Don't worry about it. Yeah. And then you get fired, and you're like, well, I was just told I was doing a good job. Yeah. And in reality, 6 months before, a manager should have said, hey, Al, I really need you to do this differently because this is the impact that it's having. Right. And giving you, at the earliest possible point of intervention, that chance to make a course correction. Yeah. And it's not because they don't like you or because they don't care for you. It's actually completely the opposite. If they like you and they care for you and they want to see you do well, it's almost an obligation to say, hey, don't do it that way. Right, right. And it's not about the way I would do it versus the way you would do it. It was just fundamentally wrong. Right. And that's where back to the conversation of delegation comes in. Right. If I give you a task to do and you're not meeting my expectations, I have to tell you at the earliest possible moment, you're not meeting my expectations. Yeah. Not that you're a bad person or you're a jerk or anything like that. Just you got to do better. Step up. Yeah. Yeah. That's great advice, especially not even just for leaders, but for
relationships that you're in, personal relationships,
works well,
family
and relationships. Yeah,
yeah. Communication is such an important aspect of any relationship.
Oh yeah.
So that's a very good look. Subscribe to the channel if you like the content that you're looking at now. If you're looking at this, if you're on YouTube, if you're just listening to this, go check out our YouTube channel. You can watch the video. Leave a comment down below too. Let us know what you think about the conversation. You can join the conversation or start your own conversation in the thread down below. Thank you again, Joe, for being on the show. And you guys, look out for new episodes every week. Talk to you later.